Well, good morning to this Friday's Fuel. I am delighted today to have one of my longstanding friends, and I'm going to let her tell you about how we met too, because it's kind of an interesting story. And then I'm going to talk to her about all the things that interesting things she's doing, from coaching, training, and doing all sorts of stuff. This is my darling friend, Cheryl McDonald. Cheryl, will you tell everybody what you're doing right now, and then how we met?
Sure. So, first of all, thanks for letting me be here.
Glad to have you here.
It's just so good to be here and feel the love.
Yeah.
So what am I doing right now? So I'm basically a coach trainer, and so I'm expanding out, kind of building my own brand that's not necessarily associated with any particular real estate company, because there's such a large audience to serve, right? We all need anything. And my big thing is mindset. Because it doesn't matter how skilled we are, if our mind's not right, it just doesn't matter. So basically, that's what I'm doing right now. So how Deborah and I met is a fascinating story.
Do you remember you really know what year it was?
Yes, I do.
All right, go ahead.
It was 2003.
Holy cow.
And I was sitting at my desk at the Museum of Science and Industry. And my thesis advisor called and said to me, "There's a former student of mine that's looking for an instructional designer. Would you be interested?" Always, always, always up for an opportunity. I never say no. So I went and I met with Deborah. And again, I did not have a real estate license, had never sold a piece of real estate in my life. I had moved 23 times. That was because my mom either got irritated with the neighbors or got the house exactly the way she wanted it, and we moved. So I came, and then I was asked to come back and do an audition. So I came back and I
Did something with pennies.
Titanic was at the museum at the time. So I did this interactive exercise, right? Because a lot of training has to do with how you interact with people. And so I did this exercise about most of the people from the Titanic didn't drown, or they broke their necks, right, jumping off the Titanic. So anyway, so there's this exercise about pennies in the really cold water. So I'm walking in this room, I got a tub of ice water and all kinds of things, and I'm thinking, she's just going to think I'm crazy. And next thing I knew, I had a job.
I was director of training at Baird & Warner, and we needed to hire an assistant at Baird & Warner. So I had an option to do this. And I have to tell you, there were two. You were one candidate,
Yeah.
And the other candidate has gone on to a wildly successful career. It's Natasha, over at Properties. Well, a couple places, but ended up at Properties. And here's the interesting read. I'll tell you why I chose you instead of her. And I've told her this because I know Natasha now, and I've told her this too. I thought those realtors were tougher. And Natasha, if you know Natasha, she's about the nicest human being on earth. Not that you're not nice, but she's about the nicest human being on earth. And I thought, she's just too nice. And not exactly the right skill set that I had more real estate stuff, but not the instructional design skill set stuff that I was looking for. So I hired you. 4 months later, someone said, "I'm looking for an assistant manager." One of our best managers at Baird & Warner at that time said, "I'm looking for an assistant manager." I said, "I have the person for you." So I actually got Natasha her job too. So I don't even feel bad that I didn't hire her for your job, because that worked again. Yeah, Natasha and I have been in touch. She's doing some really interesting things now. Anyway, you and I, so we worked together for almost 2 years, I think, maybe 2 years. And training was incredibly different at that time than it is now. Because we would say to people, you all need to be here. You all need to be here on time. I do remember that, on time. I won't let you in if you're not on time.
Right.
That was the rule. And we would have them for 2 weeks. So as I think about now the issues we're all having with buyer's agreements and everything, I have to give a nod to Steve Baird, because he hauled his managers in 2002 out and said, "You all need to learn how to teach people how to use buyer's agreements." I have that training inbred in me, and in the financial Well, in the market that we're in right now, that's what I've been out talking about, is doing buyer's agreement. So I have to give him a nod of thankfulness for having done that training for us.
Oh, absolutely. Because when I'm working or training or coaching agents and they always get to the buyer broker agreement, most agents are afraid to ask their buyers to sign it. And I'm like, it's just another document. And going back to all that training from the Career Institute.
Yes.
Has just made that super easy for me. I don't even think about it. It's just a part of the transaction or a part of the process now.
And I actually came across the Career Institute because, our friend Jim saves everything. So he sent me one of the Career Institute manuals that I had
Oh,
written.
I still have one.
He had one. I have one now too, yes. So we have the same thing that we could look at all this. So we've been doing this a long time. And what we've been doing is watching the evolution of real estate over over the last 20 years. What's changing and what's happening with it. You've been with Keller Williams for a while coaching. Mm-hmm. If I was a brand new person, Cheryl, what would you tell me that we need to do?
As a coach?
As a coach. I'm like brand new in the business, in the market that we're in now, which is different, is a different market. We've been through some tricky markets, but this one is pretty tricky too. What would you tell me to do right now?
As a coach, the first thing I'm going to tell you is if you don't have a coach, go get one. Right? Because how do I ask you as an agent to pay me if I'm not making that same investment in myself, right? There's like a lack of credibility there, which is one of the reasons why when I got my job at Baird Warner, one of the conditions was that I would go get my real estate license, right? I would have you go get a coach, and I would have you read a couple books. One is Coactive Coaching, because coaching is about asking questions. It's not about telling. Because we are all whole, complete human beings, and we all possess the answers inside of ourselves. It's the coach's job to kind of view your business from 30,000 feet, because we see everything that you don't see, which is why I need a coach, right? I'm so engrossed in what it is that I'm doing that I can't see where I'm holding myself back. And so I would have you read Coactive Coaching and get a coach.
Okay. You've been talking about mindset too, and I think the mindset, as I've been out talking about the compensation issues that are changing and some of the things in the market, I've been watching people's mindset, and it varies from my favorite. So I've got two favorite mindsets. One of the guys in one of the classes I was in, one of the presentations I was in, said simply, "I don't like it, but I do like to get paid. So I think I'm going to have to learn how to do it." And I thought, perfect. That's exactly perfect.
Right.
Exactly perfect. It's okay. I don't have to like everything
Nope.
that I'm going to have to do. Probably one of the hardest things for coaches to get over is people who say, "I don't want to do that."
Right, because it would be so much easier for me as a coach to just tell you what to do, right? To what we call a play, and have you go do it and come back and say, yes, I did it, or no, I didn't. But asking the right kinds of questions and know who you're dealing with. So I DISC everyone, which is a behavioral assessment, so I understand the best way to communicate with you. Because if I communicated with everyone in the way that I wanted to be communicated with, I would have few friends. And so it's really important to understand who it is that you're dealing with. And I was born in Dearborn, Michigan, hometown of Henry Ford. And one of my favorite quotes is by Henry Ford, and he says, "If you believe you can, or you believe you can't, you're right." So everything begins with you understanding and believing that you can. Because if you believe that you can't or won't, you are absolutely correct. You'll never do it if you don't believe that you can.
I like that as well. And I also believe that you have to tell what you want to be.
Yes.
That's another trick of this.
Yeah, you can't keep it a secret because people need to hold you accountable, right? So I had a little bit of a breakthrough this week. I was kind of proud of myself, put on my big girl pants. For 2 weeks, I had promised my coach that I would reach out to someone that I have a great deal of admiration and respect for. Her name is Diana Kokoska, and she just wrote a book called Becoming More. You can't get to better until you get to different. And I have a podcast called Real Estate Trifecta, shameless plug.
Feel free.
And I wanted to have Diana on the podcast. And I've been sitting under her mentoring and coaching for about 10 years. And I was scared to death to pick up the phone to call her. And so 1 week went by, and I said to my coach, "Gosh, I didn't do it. I'm just scared." And she said, well, what are you afraid of? I'm like, well, what if Diana doesn't remember who I am, or who am I that she would want to spend time with? And she said, Diana knows who you are. And she said, would you be willing to text her? I said, I could do that right now,
Okay.
right? I'll text her right now, no problem. And so I texted her, and she texted me back. And so I said, okay, by the time we talk next Tuesday, I will have called her on the phone. Guess what happened? Tuesday rolled around, and I didn't call because I was still scared. So I'm in my coaching call with my coach, and I say, I'll tell you what, if I do not call Diana by this time next week, I will write a $1,000 check to the people who are suing us.
Okay. Oh, man. Okay, not when you want to have to write.
Exactly.
Not when you want to have
Right?
to write.
So what did I do immediately when my coaching call ended? I called her. And guess what? She called me back. And guess what? We're recording our podcast on November 20th.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is I had created a story in my head about how Diana would respond, yet I knew her well enough to know that she would be incredibly gracious and that she would say yes. Yet I had this mental block that was preventing me from even talking now. My hands are a little sweaty. That the fact that she wouldn't know who I was. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, it didn't matter, right? In connection with that, I had a high school swim coach. Her name is Joanna Navarre, and she did something for me. She believed in me when I didn't think I could do something. We were in swim practice, and we had to swim the whole length of the pool without taking a breath. And I'm like, no. And so I was trying to go as fast as I could, thinking if I go fast, it'll be over quicker. Well, I'd get about 2/3 of the way, and I'd have to take a breath. And I remember her sitting me down and saying, Cheryl, it's not about speed, right? And she stayed with me that morning, alone, just me in the pool, until I swam the length of that pool without taking a breath. And I have thought about her so many times, and I've been wanting to call, and I haven't. So I said to my coach that day, I will write another $1,000 check if I don't reach out to my swim coach. So right after I called Diana, I called my swim coach. And so we have been in contact. We're playing a little bit of phone tag.
Yeah.
But it goes down to what motivates you, right? At that point, I was motivated by not writing a $2,000 check to somebody that's
Your enemy.
right, attacking my livelihood and my
Right.
business. And so for some people that works. And so their why has to be big enough, they say,
Okay.
in order for it to pull you through all of the things that you don't want to do. Because here's the thing, I'm going to break it to you super simple. You're never going to want to. Ever going to want to. This woman right here,
I like that.
quiet hands,
Okay.
is one of the most important people in my life. She gave me the career that I have, right? Or she gave me the opportunity. And I didn't want to get up this morning and drive an hour, but I did because I knew that Deborah was on the other end of that, right? And so that was enough for me to get up extra early, because I have 2 dogs that I adore,
Yes.
and I walk them every morning for over an hour.
So you walked your dogs for an hour before you came here?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So
I let my dogs out in the yard. That's what I did.
No. And I'm babysitting my neighbor's dog. So your why, there's a really good book. I recommend everybody read it. It's by Simon Sinek. It's called Start With Why. People don't care how we do what we do. They want to know why we do what we do. And I want to do what I want to do because real estate provided me a life that I never imagined was possible. And I want to share that with everyone. Because our industry is so vitally important. In Keller Williams, they taught me that no one can ever say no to their own dreams. And what's the American dream? Home ownership. So we are just not putting people in homes and selling homes so that they can get other places. We are helping people fulfill the American dream. And that's a pretty big why. And I want to make sure that the agents that I engage with provide the most excellent experience. Another really good book, it's a little old, it's called The Experience Economy. I read a lot.
That's okay. That's a good thing.
And what kind of experience are you leaving people with? It's just so vitally important that for me, and what I do is to create an environment or an opportunity or ask enough of the right questions for you to be able to go live the life that you never thought was possible.
Something that you said, you started by talking about the people who you were important to you. And I have probably 2 or 3 of them as well, that at some point I should tell them again, because I've already told them at least once, but tell them again how important they were into me. And I think it's so important to find the people. Well, I'm going to even back up with this. I think about when I started, even 25, 30 years ago, I started doing this, and I was so secret about being a speaker, because who would believe me, and I didn't have the right stuff, and I had 20 million reasons why I couldn't do that. And then someone said to me, go talk to that person. Although, I'll back up even further, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. Someone said to me the other day, how did you know who you wanted to be or what you wanted to do? I said, I sat in a seminar, a CRS seminar, with someone teaching it, and I said it was as clear as day to me that morning that I wanted his job. So I knew, the first thing I knew was what I wanted to do. I had no idea how to go about it. None, 0.
And you don't have to.
I didn't need to, because people would start to offer things then. Crazy, it's like magic to me. The door would open, and all I had to do was be smart enough to step through, instead of saying, I can't do that, I'm afraid to do that. So I got a whole bunch of people, there's that got word again. I had a whole bunch of people who opened doors for me that all I had to do was be smart enough to step through the door. And I think that's another core thing about coaching people is you have to get them where they're looking for that. Mm-hmm. They have to understand that all these doors are going to open, but you have to kind of be on the alert. And it helps to know, like, one of the reasons that the doors opened for me was because I had that dream down there. I knew exactly what it looked like, what he did, and that I wanted to be that person. It was crystal clear to me. So I think it's harder when people don't have, I think part of a coaching thing is to help people discover what they do want to be. Mm-hmm. People talk about doing storyboards. I didn't need a storyboard after that. A vision board. I didn't need a vision board after that. I had a clear vision. What I had to do was get unafraid to tell people that that was my vision. Because who was I to say, well, I want his job, that sort of thing. So I think that was a big challenge. I think that's a big challenge in coaching with the questions, to get them to identify what it is they want to do. I think another issue in coaching is to be able to give them the language to tell people what it is that they do. Mm-hmm. I've been discovering that as well. I had someone I was doing a presentation, and I said, well, what do you do for your buyer? Well, I'm professional, and I said, stop talking to me about that. I don't care. I mean, that's like a word that means nothing. What do you do for your buyer? I'll bet it took me 10 times to ask her, almost 10 times to ask her to get to the nitty gritty of what she did. And at first she was getting aggravated with me. I could see she was getting aggravated with me, but by the time we got to the end, she said, oh, I understand what you're asking me to do now. But no one had actually run her through all the it's kind of like peeling the onion back to get to the heart of what the middle of things, to see what you were really doing for people. She couldn't articulate that until someone kept pushing at her and saying, now, wait a minute. Okay, that's nice. What else? What else are you doing? What else are you doing? Mm-hmm. So I think this idea of asking questions for a coach is critical.
It is. And one of my favorite questions is, so tell me more about that.
Oh, I like that one.
Right. So if let's say you're working with a buyer and you go through the thing like, what are your 5 non-negotiables? Right. And they say, well, I want a big backyard. Well, great. So tell me more about that. Well, I have 2 dogs. Okay. So you have a couple dogs. Would you like your yard to be fenced in? So tell me about your dogs. All right. What do they like to do? What else do you do in your backyard? Why else is a backyard important to you? And so we do a thing, it's called going 3 deep. So every time we get an answer, I say, so tell me more about that 3 times. Until we finally get it to the smallest possible point, which is we know is what their motivation is. And then when they send us the 45 homes from Zillow that they want to go see, and 40 of them are off the market, we can say, I really appreciate that you sent me these homes. I've run them through your 5 non-negotiables, and only 2 of the houses meet those. So unless something's changed, we're going to only go view those 2 homes. Would that be all right with you? Yeah. Because what's the thing we can give? We can save people time and money. That's our value proposition, is we save people time and money. Because when you're dealing with an agent and somebody that's not in coaching, there are 2 things that matter to them. Do I want more time or do I want more money? And money buys you time. I have an assistant. She does all the things that I don't want to do, and I make money so that I can have time back to do the things I want to do, and so that she can do the things that she likes to do. I don't understand why she likes doing
I don't
those
either,
things.
honestly and truly, because I have an absolutely fabulous assistant as well. And every time it involves a piece of paper of any kind, I say, Hasame, here, can you handle this for me? Mm-hmm. And she likes it.
I know, it's
which
very
is still
crazy.
very mysterious to me because I don't.
Yeah, I don't get that.
But she likes taking, and one of the things that she is better than I do, she likes taking care of. And I don't really want to I'm not so good at taking care of anymore. I want to meet you, tell you what you need to do, or let's get to the business of it, and then I want to be done. She takes care of all the scheduling. She takes care of all that stuff. I don't know that I would work anymore without someone like that. Because if I had to go back to doing all that kind of work, it would be like, oh, why would I want to get up in the morning?
Oh, exactly.
Yes. So I think one of the other things for coaching is you have to teach people to clear out the stuff that makes them feel like, oh, I don't want to get up in the morning.
We're not all good at everything. Gary Keller tells the story about he's just not good with tools, like with a hammer. He used exactly in the story, he used a hammer. He says, and I have no desire to learn how to use one. He says, that's why I make money. So that somebody that is a master with the hammer can come and take care of whatever it is that I need to take care of, and we'll do it in less time. So our careers, or the things that we choose, are the things that fund the things we want to do. Right? I tell my agents all the time, you could have gotten up this morning and gone anywhere in the world and made money and earned an income. You chose to wake up and stay in the real estate industry. And so what causes you to continue to make that choice? I was in this class. This guy's name is David Hoffman. I will never forget it. Because every time I went to a training class and they talked about their big why, I would go sit in my car and cry at the end of class because I'm like, I pay off my credit cards.
Really?
I don't have a big why. And for a while I had 6 grandkids, and I thought, well, I'm going to create a trust fund of $6 million so that when my grandkids get older, I can leave each of them $6 million. And I thought, well, why should I make it easy for them? No, that's not true. And so I was in this class, and we were talking about big whys, and he said, so Cheryl, he says, let's talk about this. And he says, my wife and my 2 sons cannot be my big why. And I'm thinking, how can your family not be your big why, right? And he said, let's just assume that my wife and my sons are killed in a tragic automobile accident tomorrow. And when I wake up the next day, my big why is gone. He says, my big why has to be bigger than my family. And when I realized that, combined with the fact that my husband said, hey, I'm going to retire on my birthday next year. And after I sucked all the air out of the room because I did not want him to retire, I went and I bought a countdown clock. And I put it on my desk, and it counted down the days until my husband was going to retire. And so my big why became, I'm going to replace my husband's income, right? So that our lifestyle does not have to change when he retires. I was looking at the countdown clock one day, and it was like 30 days from when he was going to retire. And I thought, I am no closer to my goals now than there was the day I set this clock.
Look at the clock.
So I called my husband, and Sunday was our date day. And so we went out to breakfast, and I said, honey, I really need to apologize. And knowing me as well as he did, he said, what did you do now? And I said, and I looked at him in the face, and I said, apparently you are not important enough to me to do what I said I was going to do. And I got that, cocked puppy head look. And so I explained the story to him. And I'm going to fast forward a few years. So my husband died 2.5 years ago. And so if he had been my big why, that went with him, right? So I realized in that moment when I was having that conversation with Ed that my big why had to be something that I could never, ever really achieve. And that was to be the best that I could be. John Maxwell says that the pursuit of leadership, he said leadership is purely influence, is like climbing a mountain with no summit. So I knew what the destination is, and I do know what the destination is now. And I'm never, ever going to achieve what I truly want to achieve, but I'm going to have a great time getting there. And that's when things really kind of started to settle with me, because after my husband died, I thought, well, what's my purpose? Our kids are all grown, right? And I really struggled for a long time, and why was I even here? And then I realized one day how much joy my husband brought to me just by the pure thought of him. And I thought, I owe it to him and to me to still go out and live my best life possible. And so that's what I've done. And that's kind of when this evolution of kind of going from coaching at Keller Williams to kind of evolving out into my MCD squared, where I'm going out and I'm doing training, and I started this podcast. And so I'm slowly building this momentum of this thing that I have always wanted to do, because I remember the exact moment, like you had. I was sitting in a class. I was not with Keller Williams yet. And a guy was teaching a class, and I was sitting in the first row, and I thought, I want that guy's job.
Look at that.
And I have started and failed a million times. And I wouldn't change those failures for anything. Even when you're on autopilot in a plane, it's making constant adjustments, right? Because if it didn't, we wouldn't land where we were supposed to. So go find failure, give it a big hug, kiss it on the lips, and say, hey, come on, let's go. Let's go do this. Because there's people out there that aren't willing to take that kind of risk and make a fool of themselves. And I've probably failed more than I've succeeded. And I would not change a thing.
Neither would I. I wouldn't either. I think of all the people that I've met, all the experiences that I've had along the way. I wouldn't either. Mm-mm. But I'd like some new experiences. So so right now I'm kind of thinking about the next 10 years. That's sort of on my radar right now. What do the next 10 years look like?
Yep. I feel like in my age, which I think there's about 10 years that separates us.
I think so.
When I was in my 50s, I made more money than I'd ever made in my life in my 50s. I think that I am just entering into the prime of my life and my prime earning years.
Okay.
Is what I'm going to tell you.
All right, fair enough.
So the opportunity is all yours, and the gift of aging is not given to everyone. And
I also think you have to change, because prime earning years leaves me cold.
does it?
It does. I mean, that's nice. I'm not saying money isn't nice, but it leaves me cold for what will set my heart on fire for the next 10 years. And I haven't quite identified. I'm still tweaking the why and what that will be. Mm-hmm. I kind of have a glimmer, but it's only a glimmer at this point. So I'm thinking about what that needs to be, but I won't say that it would be. Now, a lot of times if you're really good at what you do and you're doing what you love, money comes. That's the trick of it. Money comes. Yeah. Like, oh, here, let me give you some. That part works okay, but it is not what would motivate me. I'm going to have to figure out the other big why. That's kind of where I'm fussing around and what I'm thinking about these days.
Well, I think for me it stems from the fact that, I'm sorry I'm quoting Gary Keller so much, but the guy lives inside my head. And the front of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book says, it's not about the money. It's about being the best that you can be. So if I'm being the best that I can be, like you said, my dad always said, if you love what you do, the money will show up. And I have adopted this attitude that I will never earn enough money because I can never give enough money away. My youngest daughter is 43 years old. Her husband is 54, and he has early onset Alzheimer's. And they have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. And when he was first diagnosed and she came over to the house, and I said, honey, you're going to have a lot of stuff to worry about. The one thing that I don't ever want you to worry about is money. Your dad and I will take care of everything. So that's one of the reasons that I still work. Because my daughter sometimes is fearful that her husband won't get the care that he needs later on as his disease begins to progress. And so I figure if I'm out chasing being the best I can be, then that money's just going to come. Like, I don't have a dollar figure in my head. Well, I do kind of. It's $5 million.
Okay.
But I'm just really on a pursuit for mastery. So here's an example I give when I do training, when we talk about mindset. So who in here would like or need $1 million? Okay, so everyone here has raised their hand. Here's what your brain just said. Well, gosh, that's really nice. Cheryl wants or needs $1 million. Well, the words need and want pertain to lack. Now I'm going to switch the sentence around a little bit. I am so excited to be earning my first $1 million. What is that? Now, how does your brain feel? So your
Better.
brain, yeah,
Feels
doesn't
better.
it?
It feels better.
So your brain's going, oh, Cheryl's going to earn $1 million. We need to figure out how to make this happen. I don't have any idea where the $1 million is going to come from. But your brain loves to solve problems. And so you need to let your brain work, which is why I love to sit quietly and just think. Like sometimes when I'm in the car driving, I didn't do it this morning, I sit. I don't listen to the radio. I don't listen to podcasts. I sit in the silence and let my brain work for me. So be excited to be earning your first, like wake up in the morning, I'm so excited to be earning a listing appointment today. Or I'm so excited to be able to show my buyer 3 homes and I know that they will choose one. So it's all about the words that we use, which I think are incredibly important. In fact, there's another good book. It's really old because he talks about cassette tapes.
So it's old.
It's called What You Say When You Talk to Yourself.
Oh, I think we're so mean to ourselves. It's incredible.
If anybody heard what I say to myself out loud, you would look at me and sit me down.
And have a big talk with you.
Yes, you would.
Yes. Nor would I allow someone else. Here's the interesting thing. I would not allow you to say those things to me. I would stop you if you were saying those things to me. But I'm perfectly happy to say them to myself. So I agree with you. One has to edit what you're saying to yourself all the time. There was an old, I don't know, this dates me a lot. Mary Tyler Moore had the Mary Tyler Moore show when she had, the episode that stays in my mind is she was grumping. She was grumping. You know, she'd had the job for a while. She'd done the job for a while. She was no fun to get up anymore in the morning and everything. And Ted Baxter, if you don't know, Ted Baxter was this dorky, he was a dork, and he was an obnoxious, self-absorbed dork in this. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you how to fix that. And she said, you are? Because she was thinking maybe she needed a new job or a new boyfriend or something. He said, no, it's just as simple as this. Instead of getting up in the morning and saying, oh, I have to go to work, you get up in the morning and say, hey, today I'm going to get up and go to work and it's going to be a great day. And I remember, it's crazy that 25 or 30 years later, I remember that as I'm waking up in the morning and saying, oh, it's snowing outside and I have to get dressed and I have to do this. And then that's what flashes in my mind to say, okay, but you're getting to go do this or this or this today. Be grateful and be happy that you're going to go do that. It's all what you're talking about in mindset. Yep. Every bit of it is just simply mindset.
Because we never, ever want to do anything.
Well, some things maybe, but most things not.
Right.
Most things not.
Really. When was the last time that how many people in here have said yes to something and then the event comes up and you're going, whose stupid idea was that?
Yes.
Okay? So you wanted to go, and now that it was here, you don't want to do it. And you go anyway. And so do you decide before you go that you're going to have a great time, or this is just going to be a chore? Because whatever you decide the event's going to be is what it's going to be. So I hang on to this, we can't control our first thought.
I like that.
All right? We can control our second thought. So I have in reserve all my second thoughts.
The good ones.
Yeah. I always used to say, when I would do something silly, I would say, oh my God, Cheryl, you are just such an idiot. And then I learned all about how the mind works and words, and I thought, oh boy, now my brain's just going out and looking for all the ways that I'm an idiot. So now, then I started saying, oh my God, Cheryl, you are a genius. And then pretty soon people started coming up to me and saying, God, you know what, Cheryl, you are really smart. You are a genius. And I'm like, I know, right? And so the words that we say to ourselves are so very, very, very important. There's can I quote a scripture?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a scripture in the Old Testament that said, this is the day the Lord has made. You will rejoice and be glad in it. There's no comma that says if it's 78 degrees and sunny, or if you have $1 million in the bank, or, right? It's just that this is the day. And we get to rejoice. Not because of anything, but that it's because it's the day. And so I remember that.
All the time.
All the time. I don't need something to make me feel joy. I have joy because this is the day.
We're going to end on that note. Cheryl, thank you so much for coming. This was wonderful. Views and opinions expressed by this presenter are theirs. They may not reflect the views of North Shore-Barrington Association of Realtors.